The lawyer's words hit Maria like a slap across the face. "Mrs. Castellano left you everything." Maria's hands trembled so violently that the tissue paper crinkled loud enough to echo through the mahogany office. Her worn sneakers, the ones with duct tape holding the left sole together, looked like they belonged to a different species of human compared to the polished marble floor beneath them. She could smell the leather of the chair she sat in, expensive and foreign, mixing with the scent of her own fear sweat. I don't understand," Maria whispered. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Mrs. Castellano had a son. She talked about him all the time." The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, his nameplate said, adjusted his glasses. Behind him, through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled like a kingdom Maria had only ever seen from the outside. She cleaned the towers. She scrubbed the toilets. She never sat in rooms like this. "Her son contested the will, of course," Mr. Harrison said, sliding a thick envelope across his desk. "But Mrs. Castellano was very clear, very specific. And she made these arrangements 6 months before she passed, when she was of completely sound mind. The house, the accounts, the stocks, it's all legally yours, Miss Torres." Maria's vision blurred. The number on the paper in front of her didn't make sense. It had too many zeros. People like her didn't see numbers like that unless they were bills they couldn't pay. $3.7 million. The room tilted. Maria gripped the armrests, her chipped red nail polish, 3 weeks old, because she couldn't afford the salon, catching the afternoon light. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would she do this?" Mr. Harrison's expression softened just slightly. "She left you a letter. Perhaps that will explain." He handed her a cream envelope, thick and heavy. Maria's name was written across it in Mrs. Castellano's shaky handwriting, the same hand that had written her grocery lists, her thank-you notes, her reminders to Maria to eat something, to rest, to please take care of herself too. Maria's fingers traced the letters of her name. Behind her eyes, she could see Mrs. Castellano's face, could hear her voice, accented and warm. "Mija, you work too hard. Sit. Sit, have tea with me." "Miss Torres?" Mr. Harrison's voice seemed to come from underwater. "Would you like a moment alone?" Maria nodded, not trusting her voice. When the door clicked shut, Maria finally let herself cry. Not the silent tears she'd mastered in public bathrooms between cleaning jobs, not the quiet sobs she muffled into her pillow at night so her kids wouldn't hear. This was different. This was the sound of 6 years of breaking finally cracking all the way open. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. 6 months earlier. Maria's alarm screamed at 4:47 a.m. She slapped it off before the sound could wake Sophia and Miguel in the next room. The mattress on the floor groaned as she stood. They'd sold the bed frame 8 months ago when the electricity bill came due. Her back protested. A sharp pain between her shoulder blades that she'd been ignoring for 2 weeks. The apartment was dark and cold. November in Chicago meant frost on the inside of the windows. Maria pulled on 3 layers, 2 shirts under her cleaning company polo, because Mrs. Henderson at the Oak Park house kept her thermostat at 64 degrees and said it was good for the skin. In the bathroom mirror, Maria looked older than 32. The fluorescent light was cruel, showing every line around her eyes, the gray hairs she couldn't afford to color, the hollow spaces in her cheeks. She'd lost 15 pounds since Carlos left. Not the healthy kind of weight loss, the choosing between feeding yourself or feeding your kids kind. She brushed her teeth with the toothpaste Sophia had gotten free from the school nurse. The kitchen was barely bigger than a closet. Maria opened the fridge. Half a gallon of milk, expires today, 3 eggs, a package of tortillas, some leftover rice. She'd make the eggs stretch for the kids' breakfast. She'd eat the rice later, maybe. On the counter next to Sophia's math homework, marked up with red ink, the teacher's note said, "Tutoring recommended," which meant money they didn't have. sat 3 separate bills, final notice in red across the top of each one. Electric, $287 past due. Rent, $1,650 for November, due 6 days ago. Hospital, $4,200 from when Miguel had pneumonia last winter. Maria's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to scream. Wanted to tear the bills into confetti and throw them out the window and let them scatter across the street like snow. Wanted to disappear. Instead, she folded them carefully and tucked them into her purse. The bus came at 5:30. Maria waited at the stop, shivering, watching her breath cloud in the dark. Around her, the neighborhood was quiet. A few lights flickered on in windows. Someone else's alarm, someone else's early shift, someone else's survival. Her phone buzzed. A text from her boss, Denise. Henderson canceled, plumbing emergency, added you to Castellano House instead. Same time, different address. Details attached. Maria closed her eyes and said a small prayer of thanks. Cancellations meant lost money. At least today she'd still have the hours. The Castellano House was in Lincoln Park. Maria knew she was in the wrong neighborhood the moment the bus dropped her off. The streets here were lined with trees even in winter. The houses had porches with rocking chairs, gardens with decorative fences, wreaths on the doors that cost more than her weekly grocery budget. She walked 3 blocks, her breath leaving ghost trails behind her. The house was smaller than she'd expected, a 2-story brick with black shutters and a blue door. Cozy, almost. Not the mansion she'd imagined. Maria checked the address twice, then knocked. She waited. Knocked again. Through the frosted glass of the door, she could see movement. Slow. Shuffling. The door opened. The woman who stood there was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, with white hair pinned into a neat bun and eyes the color of storm clouds. She wore a rose-colored cardigan over a floral dress, and her hands, gripping a wooden cane, were covered in age spots and prominent veins. "Oh!" The woman's face lit up. "You must be Maria. Come in. Come in, it's freezing. Why did you knock? I left the door unlocked for you." Maria's professional smile faltered. "Mrs. Castellano, I'm sorry, but I have to knock. It's company policy, company policy." Mrs. Castellano waved her cane like she was swatting away nonsense. "You'll catch your death out there. Next time, you come right in. I'll be in the kitchen or the sitting room and I'll hear you. Please." She stepped aside and Maria entered. The house smelled like lavender and old books. The floors were hardwood, worn but beautiful. Photographs lined the walls, black and white, sepia-toned, color. Faces from different eras smiled down at Maria. A wedding, a baby, a young man in military uniform. "Don't just stand there, mija," Mrs. Castellano said, already shuffling toward the back of the house. "Come have tea first. Then you can clean." "Oh, I shouldn't." "Nonsense." Mrs. Castellano didn't look back. "I've been alone in this house for 3 years. The least you can do is keep an old woman company for 10 minutes. Maria followed, something uneasy twisting in her chest. This wasn't normal. Clients didn't invite the cleaning lady for tea. Clients left notes about what to clean and disappeared to their offices or tennis lessons or wherever rich people went during the day. The kitchen was small and yellow, with ceramic tiles on the counter and copper pots hanging from hooks. Mrs. Castellano moved slowly but with purpose, putting a kettle on the stove, pulling out 2 china cups, real china with tiny painted roses. "Sit, sit," she gestured to the table. Maria sat, her backpack still on, ready to bolt back to work mode. "You have children?" Mrs. Castellano asked, easing herself into the opposite chair with a soft groan. "Yes, ma'am. 2. Sophia's 9, and Miguel just turned 7. "What a beautiful age." Mrs. Castellano's eyes went distant, warm. "My son was 7 when we came to this country, from Sicily. He cried every day for a month because he missed his nonna. His grandmother—" The kettle whistled. Maria started to stand, but Mrs. Castellano stopped her with a raised hand and shuffled back to the stove. "Does your son visit you often?" Maria asked, trying to be polite. The silence that followed was heavy. Mrs. Castellano poured the tea carefully, her hands shaking just slightly. When she returned to the table, her expression had changed. Something sad lived there now. "He's busy," she said quietly. "Very busy. Important job. Important life." She pushed a cup toward Maria. "But tell me about your children. What are they like? What makes them smile?" And somehow, Maria didn't know how it happened, she started talking. She told Mrs. Castellano about Sophia's obsession with drawing, how she filled notebook after notebook with sketches of animals and buildings and imaginary worlds. How Miguel loved dinosaurs and could name every period and species, even though he struggled with reading. How they both asked about their father sometimes, and Maria never knew what to say because how do you explain abandonment to children who still believe in fairness? Mrs. Castellano listened like she was drinking in every word. When Maria finally stopped, embarrassed by how much she'd revealed, Mrs. Castellano reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You're a good mother," she said firmly. "The best kind." Maria's throat closed up. She nodded quickly, standing. "I should start cleaning. The list is on the counter, but Maria?" Mrs. Castellano's storm-cloud eyes held hers. "You come back next week, same time, and we'll have tea again." It wasn't a question. Maria nodded. Something had started between them in that kitchen. Neither of them knew it yet, but it was the kind of beginning that changes endings. Over the next 6 months, Maria cleaned Mrs. Castellano's house every Wednesday, and every Wednesday they had tea first. Mrs. Castellano asked about the kids, asked about Maria's week, asked about her dreams, a question that made Maria laugh the first time, because dreams were luxuries she couldn't afford. But slowly, Maria started answering. She dreamed of a house, not a big one, just something with a yard where the kids could play. She dreamed of going back to school. She'd been 2 semesters away from finishing her nursing degree when she'd gotten pregnant with Sophia. She dreamed of not waking up at 4:47 a.m. with her heart racing, trying to figure out which bill to pay first. Mrs. Castellano never judged, never offered pity. She just listened and nodded, and sometimes squeezed Maria's hand across the table. Maria learned things, too. Mrs. Castellano's husband had died 12 years ago. Heart attack, sudden and brutal. Her son, Vincent, lived in New York. He was a hedge fund manager, whatever that meant. He called once a month, always on Sunday evenings, and the conversations lasted exactly 8 minutes. Mrs. Castellano timed them once. "He thinks I'm a burden," she said one Wednesday in April, staring into her teacup. "He wants me to sell the house. Move into a facility. He says I'm not safe here alone." "Are you safe?" Maria asked gently. Mrs. Castellano smiled, but it was sad. "I'm lonely. That's different from unsafe." Maria understood loneliness. She lived with it every day, even surrounded by her children. The loneliness of being the only adult in the room, the only one making decisions, the only one holding everything together while quietly falling apart. One Wednesday in May, Maria arrived to find Mrs. Castellano in the garden, sitting on a bench surrounded by roses that were just beginning to bloom. "Maria," she waved, "come see." Maria set down her cleaning supplies and joined her. The garden was small but perfect. Bursts of color against the green, bees humming between flowers, the smell of earth and life. "My husband planted these," Mrs. Castellano said softly. 40 years ago. Every year, I think they won't come back. Every year they do." They sat together in the May sunshine, and Maria felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been frozen since Carlos left, since the bills started piling up, since survival became the only goal. Hope. It felt dangerous and fragile and absolutely terrifying. "Mrs. Castellano," Maria said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, mija." "Why are you so kind to me?" The old woman turned to look at her, and her eyes were bright with tears. "Because someone was kind to me once," she said. "When I had nothing. When I was new to this country and couldn't speak English and people looked through me like I was invisible. A woman named Dorothy gave me a job in her shop, taught me English, helped me find this house. She changed my life." "Mrs." Castellano reached over and took Maria's hand. "You remind me of myself," she whispered. "You're surviving. But you deserve to live, Maria. You deserve more than survival." Maria's vision blurred. She squeezed the old woman's hand back, unable to speak. That was the day things shifted. That was the day Mrs. Castellano decided what she was going to do. Now, back in the lawyer's office, Maria's hands trembled as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was shaky, but every word was clear. "My dearest Maria, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't cry for me, Mija. I've lived a long, good life. But I need you to listen carefully. For 6 months, you brought light into my dark house. You listened to an old woman's stories. You cared about me, not because I paid you, though I know you needed the money, but because you have a kind heart. In a world that had become cold and transactional, you reminded me what humanity looks like. My son doesn't need this money. He has plenty. What he doesn't have is time or patience or love for his mother. I've made my peace with that. But you need this chance. You need to stop surviving and start living. Take this gift. Use it to build the life you dream of. Go back to school. Buy that house with the yard. Give your children the stability I know you ache to provide them. And Maria, please hear this. You don't have to earn this. You already did, just by being who you are. Thank you for seeing me. With all my love, Rosa Castellano." Maria's tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. Behind her, the office door opened. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat gently. "Miss Torres, there's someone here who wants to speak with you. Vincent Castellano. He's insisting. Tell him to get the hell out of my office." The voice was male, sharp, filled with barely contained rage. Maria spun around. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Maria made in 3 months. His face was red, his fists clenched. "You have some nerve," Vincent snarled, stepping into the room. "Coming in here, playing the victim, stealing my mother's money?" "Mr. Castellano, I warned you." Mr. Harrison moved between them. "She manipulated her!" Vincent's voice rose to a shout. "My mother was old, confused, and this cleaner took advantage of her." Maria stood slowly. Her whole body was shaking, but not from fear, from rage. "Your mother," Maria said, her voice low and deadly calm, "was lonely. She was brilliant and funny and kind. And she was alone in that house because you couldn't be bothered to visit her more than twice a year." Vincent's face went purple. "You don't know anything about—" "I know she timed your phone calls," Maria cut him off. 8 minutes, every time. I know she sat in that garden and cried because her only son treated her like an obligation. I know she remembered every story about your childhood, every accomplishment, every moment, and you couldn't remember when her birthday was." The room went silent. Vincent's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "I didn't ask for this," Maria continued, and now her voice was shaking. "I didn't manipulate anyone. I just showed up. I just listened. I just cared. And I'm sorry that's something you couldn't do." She grabbed her purse, stuffed the letter inside, and turned to Mr. Harrison. "What do I need to do next?" Mr. Harrison's eyes were wide, but there was something like respect in them. "Come back tomorrow. We'll start the paperwork. And Miss Torres—" He glanced at Vincent. "You might want to bring a lawyer of your own. This is going to get complicated." Maria nodded and walked toward the door. Vincent grabbed her arm. "This isn't over." Maria looked down at his hand, then up at his face. "Yes," she said quietly. "It is." She pulled free and walked out. Behind her, she heard Vincent's voice rise again, shouting about lawsuits and investigations and injustice. Maria didn't look back. She rode the elevator down 43 floors, walked out onto Michigan Avenue, and finally let herself feel it. The terror, the disbelief, the enormous crushing weight of what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. Sophia's school. "Miss Torres? This is Principal Martinez. Sophia got into a fight today at lunch. We need you to come pick her up." Of course. Of course the universe would do this now, in this moment, when everything was already impossible. Maria closed her eyes, took a breath, and started walking toward the bus stop. She had $3.7 million sitting in an account she didn't know how to access, and she didn't have bus fare to get home. If you were in Maria's position right now, what would you do first? Would you fight Vincent's challenges head-on, or would you walk away from the inheritance to avoid the battle? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to get even wilder. Now, let's get back to what happened when Maria walked into that principal's office. Maria's hands were still shaking when she pushed open the door to Principal Martinez's office. Sophia sat in a chair against the wall, her arms crossed, her face set in that stubborn expression Maria knew too well. There was a scrape on her cheek, and her knuckles were red. Across from her sat another girl, blonde, neat ponytail, designer backpack, with her mother. The mother's expression was icy fury wrapped in expensive perfume. "Miss Torres." Principal Martinez gestured to an empty chair. "Thank you for coming." Maria sat, her eyes never leaving Sophia. "What happened?" "Your daughter attacked my Brittany," the other mother said before the principal could speak. Her voice was sharp, entitled. "Completely unprovoked. Gave her a bloody nose. I'm considering pressing charges." Maria's spine went rigid. "Sophia wouldn't—" "She called my mom a whore." Everyone turned to look at Sophia. The girl's voice was flat, emotionless, but her eyes blazed. "Sophia!" Maria's voice cracked. "She did," Brittany said, her voice dripping fake innocence. She asked why Sophia's lunch was always just crackers and cheese. She asked where Sophia's dad was. And when I said he probably left because, "That's enough." Principal Martinez held up her hand. Both girls broke school rules. Fighting is never acceptable, regardless of provocation. "Provocation?" The blonde mother's voice rose. "My daughter was making conversation." "Your daughter was bullying mine," Maria said quietly. Every word felt like it was being dragged out of her chest. "About things she knows nothing about." The blonde mother looked Maria up and down, taking in the cleaning company polo, the worn jeans, the shoes with duct tape, and her lip curled. "Well," she said coldly, "perhaps if you focused less on making excuses and more on teaching your daughter respect, we wouldn't be here." The room went very, very quiet. Maria felt something snap inside her, something that had been bending and bending for 6 years under the weight of judgment and shame and people like this woman who thought money made them better. "My daughter," Maria said, standing slowly, "knows more about respect than your daughter will ever learn. She knows how to share, how to help, how to be kind to people even when she has nothing. She's 9 years old, and she makes dinner for her brother when I'm working late. She reads to him at night. She doesn't complain when we can't afford new clothes or when she has to wear shoes that are too small." Maria took a step forward. The blonde mother leaned back. "So don't you dare lecture me about parenting," Maria continued, her voice deadly soft now. "Your daughter has never known hunger, has never known fear. has never had to grow up too fast because the world is cruel. And that's good. I'm glad she hasn't. But it doesn't give her the right to be cruel to children who have. The blonde mother's face went red. How dare you? We're done here. Maria turned to Principal Martinez. What's Sophia's punishment? The principal looked between them, clearly uncomfortable. 3-day suspension, both girls. Fine. Maria held out her hand to Sophia. Come on, mija. Sophia stood, grabbed her backpack, and took her mother's hand. They walked out together, past the secretary's desk, past the bulletin boards covered in bright construction paper and student artwork, past all of it. In the car, Maria's ancient Honda with the broken passenger door that had to be opened from the inside, Sophia finally spoke. I'm sorry, Mom. Maria gripped the steering wheel. Didn't start the engine yet. What did she actually say? Maria asked quietly. The truth, Sophia. Sophia's voice got very small. She said Dad left because you were too poor and ugly to keep him. She said you were probably a whore who cleaned houses because you were too stupid to do anything else. The word sounded obscene coming from her 9-year-old's mouth. Maria closed her eyes, breathed in, breathed out. So you hit her? I told her to take it back first, Sophia said quickly. I gave her a chance, but she just laughed and said everyone at school knows we're trash. Maria turned to look at her daughter. Really look at her. Sophia's eyes were bright with unshed tears, but her jaw was set, defiant, proud. Baby, Maria said softly, I'm not mad you defended me. I'm not mad you defended us. But Sophia, you can't let people like that get to you. They don't matter. Yes, they do, Sophia whispered, because they're right. We are poor, we are different, and everyone can see it. The words stabbed into Maria's chest. Because Sophia was right. Kids at school saw it. Teachers saw it. Parents like that blonde woman saw it. The world saw poverty like a stain you couldn't wash out no matter how hard you scrubbed. Maria reached over and cupped Sophia's face in her hands. Listen to me, she said fiercely. Being poor doesn't make us less. It doesn't make us trash. It makes us survivors. It makes us strong. And someday, her voice broke, someday things are going to get better. I promise you, mija. I promise. Sophia nodded, but Maria could see the doubt in her eyes, the same doubt Maria felt every single day. They drove home in silence. The apartment felt even smaller when they walked in. Miguel was already home, dropped off by the neighbor who watched him after school. He was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by library books about velociraptors, his homework untouched beside him. Mom! He jumped up. Did you know velociraptors had feathers? Feathers! They were basically giant chickens that could kill you. Despite everything, Maria smiled. That's terrifying, baby. It's awesome. Miguel noticed Sophia's face. What happened to you? Nothing, Sophia muttered, disappearing into their bedroom. Miguel looked at Maria, worried. She shook her head. Later. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Mr. Harrison's office. He'd like to schedule a meeting for Monday morning to discuss the estate proceedings. Please confirm. Maria stared at the text. The inheritance, Vincent's threats, the money that could solve everything, but felt too impossible to be real. She'd almost forgotten about it in the chaos of the last hour. Almost. Another text came through, this one from Denise. Maria, I need you to pick up extra shifts this weekend. Carol is out sick. Can you do Saturday and Sunday? 2 12-hour days, at $15 an hour, scrubbing other people's toilets, washing other people's floors, while her own life stayed broken and stuck. Maria looked around her apartment, at the cracked linoleum in the kitchen, the water stain on the ceiling from the leak upstairs that the landlord still hadn't fixed, the overflowing laundry basket in the corner that she hadn't had time to touch in 3 days. Then she looked at Miguel, sitting there with his dinosaur books, his eyes bright with innocent wonder. She thought about Sophia in the bedroom, crying quietly so no one would hear. She thought about Mrs. Castellano's letter. You deserve to stop surviving and start living. Maria's hands were shaking again as she typed 2 responses. To Mr. Harrison, I'll be there. 9 a.m. Monday. To Denise, I can't, I'm sorry. She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she walked into Sophia's room, sat down on the floor beside her daughter's mattress, and pulled her into a hug. It's going to be okay, she whispered into Sophia's hair. I don't know how yet, but it's going to be okay. Sophia clung to her and finally let herself cry. Outside, the city hummed on, car horns and sirens and trains rumbling past, 1,000 stories happening all at once, all around them. But in that small bedroom, in that tiny apartment, something was shifting. A woman who had spent 6 years bending under the weight of the world was starting to straighten her spine, and a battle was coming. Vincent Castellano wasn't going to give up $3.7 million without a fight, but Maria Torres had been fighting her whole life, and she'd just learned she had millions of reasons to keep fighting. The courthouse smelled like floor polish and old paper. Maria sat on a bench outside courtroom 4C, her palms sweating against the knees of her only dress pants, the black ones she'd bought from Goodwill 3 years ago for Carlos's cousin's funeral. They were slightly too big now, held up with a belt she'd punched an extra hole into with a screwdriver. Beside her sat her lawyer, Patricia Chen, a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. Mr. Harrison had recommended her, said she was a bulldog in the courtroom. Patricia had taken one look at Maria's situation and agreed to work for a reduced fee, payable only if they won. He's trying to intimidate you, Patricia said, not looking up from the stack of papers in her lap. Vincent Castellano filed 3 separate motions this week. He's claiming undue influence, claiming his mother wasn't of sound mind, claiming you isolated her from family. It's all standard rich person tantrum stuff. What if he wins? Maria's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Patricia finally looked at her. Then you walk away with nothing, and he gets everything. But Maria? She leaned closer. His case is weak. Your relationship with Mrs. Castellano was witnessed by neighbors, her doctors, her priest. You never asked her for money, never pressured her. You just showed up and cared. That's not manipulation. That's compassion. Then why do I feel like a criminal? Because he wants you to. Patricia's voice turned hard. Men like Vincent Castellano believe the world belongs to them. They believe money is supposed to stay in certain families, flow to certain people. The idea that his mother chose you over him? It's not about the money, Maria. It's about his ego. The courtroom doors opened. A bailiff stepped out. Castellano estate case. We're ready for you. Maria's legs felt like water as she stood. The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected from TV shows. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. The judge, an older black woman with silver hair and reading glasses, sat behind her bench, shuffling papers. Vincent Castellano sat at the plaintiff's table with 2 lawyers. Both men, both in suits that probably cost more than Maria's monthly rent. Vincent didn't look at her, just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. Maria and Patricia took their seats at the defense table. All rise, the bailiff said. Everyone stood. The judge peered over her glasses at both sides. Well, she said, her voice dry, this is quite the mess you've all brought me. Mr. Castellano, your mother's will was properly executed, witnessed, and filed. You're asking me to overturn it based on claims of undue influence. That's a high bar to clear. Let's see if you can manage it. Vincent's lead lawyer, a man named Thornton, according to the nameplate, stood. Your Honor, we have substantial evidence that Miss Torres manipulated our client's elderly mother during a time of vulnerability. Objection, Patricia stood. Foundation, the will was executed 6 months before Mrs. Castellano's death. when she was under regular care from her physician who documented her mental competence. Mr. Thornton is making claims without evidence. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Thornton, stick to facts, not feelings. Thornton's smile was sharp. Very well. We'd like to call our first witness. Vincent Castellano. Vincent stood and walked to the witness stand. He was sworn in, sat down, and immediately looked at Maria with such hatred that she felt it like a physical blow. Mr. Castellano, Thornton began, how often did you speak with your mother in the year before her death? Weekly, Vincent said firmly. Every Sunday evening. We had a standing phone call. Maria's hands clenched. 8 minutes. Always 8 minutes. And in those conversations, did your mother ever mention Miss Torres? Not until the very end. Vincent's voice took on a practiced grief. And when she did, I became concerned. She kept talking about how much time they spent together. How Maria understood her. How Maria needed help. It was obsessive, not like my mother at all. What did you do about your concerns? I tried to visit more, Vincent said. But my mother had become distant. She started making excuses why I couldn't come by, said she was tired or had plans with Maria. It was such a careful lie, so close to truth that it felt slippery. Patricia stood. Objection. Mr. Castellano's characterization of his mother's behavior is speculation. Your Honor, Thornton said smoothly, Mr. Castellano is testifying to his observations and concerns as her son. I'll allow it, the judge said. But get to the point, Mr. Thornton. Did you know your mother had changed her will? No. Vincent's voice broke just slightly. I found out after she died. She never told me. Never gave me a chance to discuss it with her, to make sure she understood what she was doing. And how did that make you feel? Patricia stood again. Objection. Relevance. Sustained. Mr. Thornton. This isn't therapy. Move on. But the damage was done. Maria could see it in the judge's face. A flicker of sympathy for Vincent, the grieving son who'd been cut out. Thornton asked a few more questions, painting a picture of Vincent as the devoted son, calling every week, trying to visit, worried about his aging mother falling under the influence of a stranger. Then it was Patricia's turn. She stood slowly, buttoning her jacket, walked toward Vincent with a folder in her hand. Mr. Castellano, you testified that you called your mother every Sunday. Is that correct? Yes. Every Sunday for the entire year before her death? Yes. Patricia opened the folder. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Mrs. Castellano's phone records for the last year of her life. She handed copies to the bailiff, who distributed them to the judge and opposing counsel. Mr. Castellano, could you point out for us where your weekly Sunday calls appear in these records? Vincent's face went tight. He looked at his lawyers. Thornton was frantically flipping through pages. Your Honor, Thornton said quickly, we object to the admissibility of... On what grounds? Patricia's voice was sweet poison. These are official phone records, properly subpoenaed, unless you're claiming they're falsified? Overruled, the judge said, now reading the records herself. Her eyebrows rose. Mr. Castellano, I'm looking at January through December of last year. I count 14 calls total. That's not weekly. That's barely monthly. Vincent's face flushed red. There may have been weeks I couldn't... And according to these records, Patricia continued, the average length of your calls was 7.3 minutes. The longest was 11 minutes. The shortest was 4. The courtroom was silent. Let me ask you something else, Mr. Castellano. When was your mother's birthday? Vincent blinked. May 14th. May 22nd, Patricia said quietly. According to her death certificate and every legal document we have, you got your own mother's birthday wrong. That was a slip of the tongue. When did you last visit her house? Before her death? Vincent's jaw clenched. I don't recall exactly. Let me help you. According to visitor logs from Mrs. Castellano's home health care aide, hired in the last 3 months of her life, you visited exactly twice, once in September for 35 minutes, once in November for 20 minutes. Both visits ended with arguments loud enough that neighbors reported them to the health care aide. That's not... What were the arguments about, Mr. Castellano? Vincent's hands gripped the armrests of the witness chair. My mother was being stubborn. She refused to consider assisted living. She was alone in that house, at risk. Or, Patricia said, her voice cutting, you wanted her to sell the house so you could access the equity. Isn't that true? Objection. Thornton was on his feet. Counsel is badgering. I'm cross-examining, Patricia snapped. Answer the question, Mr. Castellano. Did you or did you not repeatedly pressure your mother to sell her home? Vincent's face was purple now. I wanted what was best for her. You wanted what was best for your bank account, and when she refused, when she realized you cared more about her assets than her well-being, she made a choice. She left her estate to someone who actually gave a damn about her. How dare you? Vincent started to stand. Mr. Castellano, sit down, the judge ordered, and counsel, watch your language. Patricia turned away from Vincent, dismissing him. No further questions. The judge looked at Vincent, and Maria could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. The sympathy was gone now. What remained was cold assessment. You may step down, Mr. Castellano. Vincent practically fled the witness stand, his lawyers huddling around him at their table, whispering urgently. Miss Chen, the judge said, do you have witnesses? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Maria Torres. Maria's heart stopped. Patricia had warned her this would happen. But knowing it and experiencing it were different things. She stood on shaking legs and walked to the witness stand. The bailiff swore her in. The Bible was warm under her hand like someone else had just gripped it too tight. She sat. The courtroom felt enormous now. All eyes on her. Patricia approached with a gentle smile. Miss Torres, how did you meet Rosa Castellano? Maria's voice came out scratchy. She cleared her throat. I was assigned to clean her house by my employer, Elite Home Services. And what were your duties? General housekeeping, vacuuming, dusting, bathroom and kitchen cleaning, standard residential service. Did Mrs. Castellano ask you to do anything beyond your assigned duties? No, she... Maria's throat closed up. She breathed through it. She asked me to have tea with her before I started cleaning. She said she was lonely. Did you have tea with her? Yes. Every visit? Yes. Every Wednesday. Did she pay you for that time? No. It wasn't about money. She just wanted someone to talk to. Patricia nodded, making notes. What did you talk about? Everything. Her husband, her son, her life in Sicily, my kids, my struggles. Maria's voice dropped. She listened. She cared. She treated me like a person. Not just the help. Did Mrs. Castellano ever mention her will to you? Never. Not once. I didn't know she'd changed it until after she died. Did you ever ask her for money? No. Did you ever suggest she should leave you anything? Never! I would never! Maria's voice broke. She wiped her eyes quickly. She gave me enough just by being kind. Patricia let that sit in the air for a moment. Miss Torres, Mr. Castellano claims you manipulated his mother, isolated her, took advantage of her. What do you say to that? Maria looked directly at Vincent for the first time since entering the courtroom. I say he's lying to himself, she said quietly, because it's easier than admitting he failed her. I didn't isolate Mrs. Castellano. I was just there. And he wasn't. Patricia smiled. No further questions. Thornton stood, adjusting his tie. His smile was predatory. Miss Torres, you're a single mother, correct? Yes. With 2 children to support? Yes. And you work as a cleaning woman? Maria lifted her chin. I work as a residential cleaning specialist, yes. Making what, $15 an hour? Yes. And you struggle financially, don't you? Behind on bills, behind on rent? Patricia stood. Objection. Relevance? I'm establishing financial motive, Your Honor. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Miss Torres. Maria's hands clenched in her lap. Yes, I struggle financially. So when an elderly woman with millions of dollars befriends you, you must have thought it was quite the opportunity. No. Come on, Miss Torres. A rich old lady, lonely, vulnerable, estranged from her only son. And here you are, the sympathetic cleaning lady with the sob story about your kids and your bills. Did you see her coming from a mile away? That's not what happened. Did you tell her about your financial problems? She asked, did you cry about your struggles? Paint yourself as the victim? Objection! Patricia's voice cut through the courtroom. Counsel is testifying, not questioning. Sustained. Mr. Thornton, ask questions. Don't make speeches. But Thornton was on a roll. Miss Torres, isn't it true that you saw Mrs. Castellano as a way out of your poverty? No. Isn't it true that you spent months earning her trust specifically so she'd remember you in her will? No! Maria's voice echoed. She was standing now, not even realizing she'd risen. I cared about her. I loved her. She was lonely and forgotten, and I just showed up. I didn't want her money. I wanted her to not die alone in that house, wondering why her own son couldn't spare more than 8 minutes on the phone. The courtroom went dead silent. Maria was shaking, tears streaming down her face. She sank back into the chair. Thornton smiled coldly. I see. You loved her. How convenient. No further questions, Your Honor. He walked back to his table, looking satisfied. Patricia stood. Redirect, Your Honor? Make it quick. Patricia approached Maria gently. Miss Torres, why are you fighting for this inheritance? Maria wiped her eyes. Because Mrs. Castellano wanted me to have it. Because she made a choice, a clear choice, about what to do with her own money. And because... Her voice strengthened. Because I watched her die alone in a hospital room. Because Vincent showed up 15 minutes before she passed, after I'd been there for 6 hours holding her hand. Because her last words were, tell Maria I'm sorry I couldn't say goodbye properly. Not tell Vincent, not tell my son. She said my name. Maria looked at Vincent again. Tears were running freely down her face now, but her voice was steady. So yes, I'm fighting for this, not because I'm greedy, but because Rosa Castellano deserves to have her wishes honored. And I'll be damned if I let you pretend you cared about her now that she's gone. The courtroom was silent. Patricia smiled. Nothing further, Your Honor. The judge took a 15-minute recess. Maria sat in the hallway, her head in her hands. Patricia sat beside her, saying nothing. When they were called back in, the judge had her decision written on her face. I've reviewed the evidence, she said. Mr. Castellano, your case relies heavily on the assumption that your mother was vulnerable and susceptible to manipulation. However, the medical records show she was of sound mind until the very end. The testimony shows that Miss Torres never solicited gifts or money. And frankly, your own testimony reveals a pattern of neglect that gives credence to your mother's decision to look elsewhere for companionship and gratitude. Vincent's face went white. However, the judge continued, and Maria's heart dropped. Mr. Castellano has raised sufficient questions about the circumstances that I believe this matter requires further investigation. I'm ordering a 6-month review period. During this time, the estate will remain frozen. Neither party may access the funds. A court-appointed investigator will interview witnesses, examine records, and provide a detailed report. We'll reconvene in 6 months for a final ruling. The gavel banged. It was over, but it wasn't. 6 more months. 6 more months of nothing changing. 6 more months of survival mode. Maria felt something break inside her chest. Outside the courthouse, Patricia put a hand on Maria's shoulder. "This is actually good news," she said. "The judge didn't rule against us. She's just being thorough. And Maria, we're going to win this. I know we are." Maria nodded numbly. Her phone rang. Sophia's school again. "Miss Torres, this is Nurse Patterson. Miguel fell on the playground. He's asking for you. Can you come get him?" Maria closed her eyes. "I'm on my way." She hung up and looked at Patricia. "I have to go." "Of course. I'll be in touch about the investigation." Maria walked toward the bus stop, her feet heavy, her heart heavier. She'd been so close to being able to fix everything. And now she had to wait, had to keep struggling, had to keep choosing between electricity and groceries, between new shoes for Miguel and the water bill. The bus came. Maria climbed on, fed her last dollar into the fare machine, and collapsed into a seat by the window. Outside, Chicago scrolled past, people rushing to jobs, to homes, to lives that probably weren't falling apart. Maria's reflection stared back at her from the glass. She looked exhausted, defeated, old. But as the bus rumbled toward Miguel's school, something small and fierce began to kindle in her chest again. Vincent thought he'd won, thought the delay would break her, thought she'd give up, walk away, go back to being invisible. But Maria Torres had spent 6 years surviving the impossible. She could survive 6 more months. And when that investigator came knocking, they'd find the truth. They'd find dozens of people who'd witnessed Maria's kindness. They'd find Mrs. Castellano's priest, her doctor, her neighbors. They'd find the real story, not Vincent's carefully constructed lie. Maria pressed her forehead against the cool glass and whispered the promise to herself. "I won't give up, Rosa. I promise. I won't give up." But she didn't know what was coming. She didn't know that Vincent Castellano was already making calls. She didn't know that powerful people were being activated, favors called in, pressure applied. She didn't know that 2 blocks from her apartment, a man in an expensive car was taking photographs of her building, her children, her life. She didn't know that the war was just beginning, and she didn't know that before those 6 months were up, she'd lose something that no amount of money could ever replace. The bus rolled on through the city, and Maria sat there, believing she'd already survived the worst. She had no idea how wrong she was. "What do you think Vincent is planning? Is there any line he won't cross to get his inheritance back? And more importantly, do you think Maria can really win against someone with his power and resources? Drop your predictions in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe, because what happened next is going to shatter everything you think you know about this story. Now let's see what happens next. The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Maria's eyes snapped open in the darkness, her heart already racing with that mother instinct that knows when something is wrong before the conscious mind can catch up. She grabbed her phone. Unknown number. "Hello? Miss Torres?" A woman's voice, professional but strained. "This is Officer Ramirez with the Chicago Police Department. I'm calling about your daughter, Sophia." The world stopped. What happened? Maria was already moving, throwing off blankets, searching for pants in the dark. "Is she hurt? Where is she?" "She's safe, ma'am. But she was picked up at a gas station on Western Avenue at 2 a.m. She was with 2 other minors and—" The officer paused. "Ma'am, there were drugs in the vehicle." Maria's legs gave out. She sat hard on the edge of the bed. "That's impossible. Sophia is in her room. She's sleeping." But even as she said it, Maria was moving down the short hallway, pushing open the bedroom door. Sophia's bed was empty. The window was open, curtain fluttering in the night breeze. "No," Maria whispered. "No, no, no. Miss Torres, we need you to come to the 3rd District station to pick her up." Maria's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the phone. I don't have a car. The station. That's miles from here. Can you call someone to drive you? Who? Maria wanted to scream. Who was she supposed to call at 3 a.m.? She had no family here, no husband, no friends with cars who wouldn't judge her for being the mother whose 9-year-old snuck out a window in the middle of the night. I'll take a cab, Maria heard herself say. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up and stood there for a moment in her children's bedroom, looking at Sophia's empty bed, at the homework scattered on the floor, at the drawings taped to the walls, unicorns and flowers and hearts. Her baby. Her 9-year-old baby was at a police station because she'd been in a car with drugs. Maria wanted to scream, wanted to break something, wanted to rewind time back to when things made sense. Instead, she woke Miguel, groggy and confused, bundled him into his jacket over his pajamas, and called a cab she couldn't afford. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and fear. Maria held Miguel's hand too tight as they approached the front desk. The officer there, a middle-aged white man with tired eyes, looked at her with the particular mix of pity and judgment that Maria knew too well. I'm Maria Torres. I got a call about my daughter, Sophia? He checked his computer. Yeah. She's in holding with the other juveniles. You'll need to speak with Officer Ramirez. Hold on. He picked up a phone, spoke quietly, then gestured to a row of plastic chairs. She'll be right out. Maria sat, Miguel curled against her side, half asleep. Around them, the night shift of Chicago's Broken played out. A woman shouting about her stolen purse, a man in handcuffs being led past, a teenager crying in the corner while his parents argued in rapid Spanish. This was Maria's world now. This was where Sophia belonged, apparently. Miss Torres. Officer Ramirez was younger than Maria expected, maybe 30, Latina, with kind eyes that somehow made everything worse. Kindness meant it was real. Kindness meant this nightmare wasn't a mistake. Maria stood. Where's my daughter? Follow me. They walked down a hallway, Miguel's hand still gripped in Maria's, past doors with small windows showing rooms filled with desperation. Officer Ramirez opened one door and gestured Maria inside. Sophia sat at a metal table, her face blotchy from crying. She looked so small in that harsh room, so young, still wearing the pink unicorn pajamas Maria had gotten her from Target last Christmas. Mom! Sophia's voice broke. Maria wanted to run to her, wanted to hold her, but Officer Ramirez's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Let's talk first, the officer said quietly. Out here. Maria looked back at Miguel. Stay right here, mijo. Don't move. He nodded, his eyes wide and scared. Officer Ramirez led Maria a few feet down the hall, out of earshot. What happened? Maria demanded. Sophia doesn't do drugs. She's 9. She doesn't even know anyone who— The drugs weren't hers, Officer Ramirez said. They were in the glove compartment. The car belonged to a 16-year-old named Marcus Chen. Sophia and another girl, Brittany Henderson, were passengers. The name hit Maria like ice water. Brittany? From her school? The girl she fought with? Officer Ramirez consulted her notepad. Yes. According to the girls, they met up tonight to talk things out. Brittany suggested they go for a drive with Marcus, her older cousin. Sophia snuck out her window to meet them. And the drugs? Small amount of marijuana in a plastic bag. Marcus is taking responsibility, says the girls didn't know. But Miss Torres— Officer Ramirez's voice dropped. This looks bad. A child welfare investigator has already been notified. They're going to want to assess your home situation. The floor tilted under Maria's feet. Child welfare? You think I'm a bad mother? I think you're a single mom working multiple jobs who probably can't monitor your daughter 24/7. I think your 9-year-old just snuck out a window at 2 a.m., and I think when CPS sees that combined with your financial struggles— She paused. They're going to have questions. Maria couldn't breathe. The hallway was closing in, the fluorescent lights too bright, the smell of fear and disinfectant choking her. "I need to take her home," she whispered. Officer Ramirez nodded. "You can. We're not charging her with anything. She's too young, and there's no evidence she knew about the drugs. But Miss Torres, get your daughter help, therapy, counseling, something. Because if this happens again—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Maria went back into the room. Sophia looked up at her with red, swollen eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Not here," Maria said quietly. "We're going home. Get up." They walked out together, Maria, Sophia, and Miguel, past the tired officer at the desk, past the other families in crisis, past the drunk tank and the holding cells and all of it. Outside, dawn was just starting to pink the sky. The cab ride home cost $43 Maria didn't have. She put it on a credit card that was already maxed out. Nobody spoke. When they got back to the apartment, Maria sent Miguel to bed. Then she turned to Sophia. "What were you thinking?" Sophia's tears started fresh. "Brittany texted me. She said she wanted to apologize for what she said at school. She said she felt bad and wanted to make things right. I thought if we could be friends, maybe school would get better. Maybe kids would stop looking at me like I'm trash." "So you snuck out a window at 2 a.m. to get in a car with a teenager you don't know?" "I didn't know about the drugs, Mom. I swear. Brittany said we were just going to drive around and talk. And you believed her?" Maria's voice rose despite herself. "After she bullied you? After she said those horrible things? You trusted her?" Sophia flinched like she'd been slapped. Maria closed her eyes, trying to find calm, trying to be the mother Sophia needed right now instead of the terrified woman she was. "Baby," she said, her voice shaking, "do you understand what almost happened? Do you understand that they're going to send someone from Child Services to investigate us? That they could decide I'm not fit to take care of you?" Sophia's face went white. "They can't take us away from you." "They can," Maria said, "if they think you're in danger, if they think I can't keep you safe." Her voice broke. "Sophia, you're all I have. You and Miguel. You're the reason I get up every morning, the reason I work 3 jobs, the reason I keep fighting. And if they take you away from me—" She couldn't finish. She pulled Sophia into her arms and held her tight while they both cried. "I'm sorry," Sophia sobbed into her mother's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to stop being the poor kid everyone makes fun of." And there it was, the truth that cut deeper than any knife. Sophia hadn't snuck out because she was a bad kid. She'd snuck out because she was desperate to escape the life poverty had trapped them in. Maria held her daughter and stared at the wall where 3 overdue bills were taped up like accusations. Everything she'd been fighting for, the inheritance, the chance to give her kids better, suddenly felt impossibly far away. The Child Services investigator came 3 days later. Her name was Margaret Walsh, a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She walked through Maria's apartment with a clipboard, making notes. Maria watched her examine everything: the mattresses on the floor, the food in the nearly empty fridge, the water stain on the ceiling, the crack in the bathroom tile. "How many hours a week do you work, Miss Torres?" "It depends. Usually 50 to 60. "And the children are with you during those hours?" "No. Sophia's in school. Miguel goes to after-school care. My neighbor watches him when I work evenings." "Do you compensate this neighbor?" Maria's stomach twisted. "When I can. She knows things are tight. She helps because she's kind." Margaret wrote something down. "And Sophia's recent incident at the police station was a mistake. A terrible mistake. I've talked to her. She understands how serious it was." "Has she had behavioral problems before?" "She got in a fight at school." Maria forced herself to be honest. She was being bullied. She defended herself. More notes. Miss Torres, I'm going to be direct with you. This situation raises red flags. A 9-year-old sneaking out at night suggests inadequate supervision. Your financial struggles mean the children may not have their basic needs met consistently. The multiple jobs mean you're not present as much as children this age require. Each word was a nail in Maria's coffin. But I love them, Maria whispered. I'm doing everything I can. Love isn't always enough. Margaret's voice wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. Children need stability, structure, safety. Can you honestly say they have those things here? Maria looked around her apartment, at the peeling paint and the cramped space and the evidence of poverty everywhere. We're surviving, she said. Surviving isn't thriving. Margaret closed her folder. I'm not removing the children today, but Miss Torres, you're on thin ice. Any further incidents, any signs that their welfare is at risk, and we'll have to intervene. Do you understand? Maria nodded, not trusting her voice. After Margaret left, Maria sat on the floor and cried until she had nothing left. The next morning, Maria got another call. Miss Torres, this is Patricia Chen. We need to talk. Can you come to my office? There was something wrong in Patricia's voice, something tight and worried. Maria found a neighbor to watch the kids and took 2 buses to Patricia's downtown office. The lawyer was waiting with a folder of papers and a grim expression. Maria, Vincent's legal team filed new motions yesterday. They've subpoenaed records of your recent police contact with Sophia. They're arguing that your inability to properly parent your own children proves you manipulated Mrs. Castellano for financial gain. Maria's vision blurred. What? They're painting a picture. Desperate single mother, failing to provide for her kids, sees elderly woman as a meal ticket. And now, with this police incident, they're saying it shows a pattern of poor judgment and instability. But that's not. Sophia made a mistake. One mistake. I know. Patricia's voice was gentle. But Maria, optics matter. Vincent has hired a PR firm. There are already articles appearing online. Cleaning woman accused of elder abuse claims inheritance. They're leaking details, twisting the narrative. Maria felt like she was drowning. What do I do? We fight back. I need you to get me character witnesses. Everyone who knew you and Mrs. Castellano. Her doctor, her priest, neighbors, anyone who can testify to your relationship. And Maria? Patricia leaned forward. You need to be perfect until this is over. No more incidents. Nothing Vincent can use against you. Maria laughed, and it came out broken. How am I supposed to be perfect? I'm barely holding on. I know, but that's what it's going to take. 2 months later, Maria stood in Mrs. Castellano's garden. She'd been given a key by the estate lawyers. The house was still in probate, frozen until the investigation concluded. But Patricia had gotten permission for Maria to maintain the property. So Maria came here once a week, watered the roses, pulled weeds, sat on the bench where she and Mrs. Castellano had shared that perfect May afternoon. It was the only place she felt close to peace anymore. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Investigators' report is in. Meeting Monday, 9 a.m. This is it, Maria. 4 months of hell, distilled down to one final meeting. Maria looked at the roses. They were blooming despite everything. Beautiful and resilient and refusing to die. I hope I made you proud, she whispered to the memory of Rosa Castellano. I hope fighting for this was worth it. A car pulled up outside the garden gate. A black sedan with tinted windows. Maria's heart stopped. The door opened and Vincent Castellano stepped out. They stared at each other across the garden fence. You're trespassing, Maria said quietly. It's my mother's house. Vincent's voice was cold. Not yet. He walked closer to the fence. Up close, Maria could see he looked terrible. Bags under his eyes, his suit wrinkled, his face gaunt. Why won't you just give up? He asked. The anger was gone from his voice. What remained was something raw, broken. "Why are you putting us both through this?" Maria stood facing him. "Because your mother wanted me to have this. Because she made a choice. She was lonely and confused. She was brilliant and clear-minded and tired of being treated like a burden by her own son." Vincent flinched. They stood there in silence, the garden between them, the weight of Rosa Castellano's choice hanging in the air. "I loved my mother," Vincent said finally. His voice cracked. "I know you don't believe that. I know I failed her. I was busy, I was selfish, I took her for granted. But I loved her. And losing her and then finding out she gave everything to a stranger, it destroyed me." For the first time, Maria saw Vincent Castellano not as an enemy but as a son who'd realized too late what he'd lost. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "I'm sorry you're hurting. But I loved her too, and I'm not giving up what she wanted me to have." Vincent nodded slowly. "Then I'll see you in court Monday." He walked back to his car and drove away. Maria stood in the garden shaking and wondered which of them would walk away from Monday's meeting with everything and which would walk away with nothing. Monday, 9 a.m. The judge's chambers were smaller than the courtroom, more intimate. Just the judge, Vincent and his lawyers, Maria and Patricia, and the court investigator, a man named Thomas Reed. Judge Rodriguez looked at Reed. "What did you find?" Reed opened his report. "Your Honor, I interviewed 23 people over the past 4 months. Mrs. Castellano's physician confirms she was of sound mind when the will was executed. Her priest confirms that she spoke often and warmly of Miss Torres. 6 neighbors testified that they witnessed friendly interactions between the 2 women, with no signs of manipulation or coercion." Maria's heart pounded. "However," Reed continued, and Maria's hope cracked, "Miss Torres's recent involvement with the police and child services raises concerns about her judgment and stability. While there's no evidence she manipulated Mrs. Castellano, there is evidence of a chaotic home life that could be seen as relevant to her character." Vincent's lawyer leaned forward. "Your Honor, this is exactly what we've been saying." "I'm not finished," Reed said coldly. He turned a page. "I also discovered something interesting in my investigation. Mr. Castellano, did you hire a private investigator to follow Miss Torres and her children?" The room went silent. Vincent's face paled. I wanted to understand who... Did you or did you not pay someone to photograph her children, to document her daily activities, to, in the words of your own investigator's report, find dirt we can use?" Patricia's head snapped toward Vincent. "You did what?" "Your Honor," Vincent's lead attorney stood. "My client was simply... Your client was harassing a single mother and her minor children." Judge Rodriguez's voice was ice. "Mr. Reed, is there more?" "Yes. I also found evidence that Mr. Castellano contacted Miss Torres's employer and attempted to have her fired. That he contacted her landlord suggesting she was an unfit tenant. That he systematically tried to destabilize her life in hopes she'd abandon her claim." Maria stared at Vincent. He couldn't meet her eyes. "That's harassment," the judge said flatly. "That's witness intimidation. Mr. Castellano, you just sabotaged your own case." Vincent's attorney tried to recover. "Your Honor, my client was emotional, grieving. Your client broke the law." The judge turned to Maria. "Miss Torres, stand up." Maria stood on shaking legs. "I've read your story. I've read Mrs. Castellano's letter to you. I've reviewed every piece of evidence, and here's what I see. A woman who showed kindness to a lonely old lady, a woman who asked for nothing and received everything, a woman who's been attacked and harassed for months because someone powerful didn't like the choices his mother made." The judge looked at Vincent. "Mr. Castellano, your mother left you nothing because you gave her nothing. Money, perhaps. Obligation, certainly. But not love, not time, not the things that actually matter. Miss Torres gave your mother those things, and your mother rewarded her accordingly. That was her right. She turned back to Maria. I'm ruling in favor of Miss Torres. The inheritance stands. The estate will be released to her within 30 days. Maria's knees buckled. Patricia caught her. Your Honor? Vincent started to stand. Sit down, Mr. Castellano. We're done here. And if you file any further actions against Miss Torres, I'll hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Vincent sank into his chair, his face ashen. The judge banged her gavel. This case is closed. Outside the courthouse, Maria stood on the steps in the morning sun. Patricia hugged her tight. You did it. It's over. It's finally over. Maria nodded, but she couldn't speak, couldn't process. 4 months of hell, and it was just over. Her phone rang. The school. Maria's stomach dropped. Not again. Please, not again. Miss Torres? This is Principal Martinez. I'm calling with good news for once. Sophia won the district art competition. Her piece is being displayed at the city showcase. We're so proud of her. Maria's vision blurred with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for telling me. She hung up and looked at Patricia. I need to go tell my kids. Patricia smiled. Go. And Maria? Congratulations, you earned this. Maria walked down the courthouse steps, past the lawyers and the defendants and the whole circus of justice, and headed toward the bus stop. But halfway there she stopped. She didn't have to take the bus anymore. She could afford a cab, could afford a car, could afford anything. Maria stood there on the sidewalk, Chicago rushing past her, and started to laugh, then cry, then both at once. A woman walking past looked at her with concern. Are you okay, honey? Maria nodded, wiping her eyes. Yeah, I think I finally am. 3 months later. The house had a yard. Not a big one, but enough. Enough for Miguel to dig for dinosaur bones, rocks. Enough for Sophia to set up an easel and paint outside. Enough for all of them to breathe. Maria stood in the kitchen of their new home, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen with a real dishwasher, and watched her children through the window. Sophia was teaching Miguel to paint. He was getting more on himself than the canvas, but he was laughing, really laughing, in the way he used to before Carlos left. On the counter sat a stack of mail. Electricity bill, paid in full hospital bill, paid in full Sophia's school tuition for private art classes, paid in full, and underneath those, an acceptance letter. Dear Maria Torres, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into the nursing program at Chicago State University. Maria traced her fingers over the words. She was going back to school. In January, she'd start classes, part-time at first, because she still wanted to be there for her kids. But she was going to finish her degree, going to become a nurse, going to build the life Rosa Castellano had wanted for her, a life, not just survival. The doorbell rang. Maria opened it to find a delivery man holding a package. Maria Torres? Yes? Special delivery. Signature required. Maria signed, confused. She hadn't ordered anything. The package was small, wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a jewelry box. Inside that, a note. Maria, found this in my mother's things. She wanted you to have it. Vincent. Underneath the note was a silver locket. Maria opened it with trembling hands. Inside were 2 photos. One of Rosa Castellano as a young woman smiling in front of the house Maria now owned. The other was a photo Maria didn't remember being taken, her and Mrs. Castellano in the garden, having tea, both of them laughing. Someone, one of the neighbors probably, had captured that moment without them knowing. Maria pressed the locket to her chest and cried. Not sad tears this time, relief, gratitude, joy, grief, all of it mixed together. Mom? Sophia appeared in the doorway. You okay? Maria wiped her eyes and smiled. Yeah, baby, I'm perfect. Want to help me make dinner? Can we have something that's not rice and beans? Maria laughed. We can have anything you want. They walked into the kitchen together, and Maria started pulling ingredients from a fridge that was actually full. As she cooked, Sophia chattered about her art class, about the showcase, about how one of her pieces had sold for $200. I want to give you the money, Sophia said. For bills. Maria stopped chopping vegetables and looked at her daughter. Baby, we don't need it for bills anymore. That money is yours. You earned it. Put it in your savings account. Sophia's eyes went wide. I have a savings account? You do now. You and Miguel both, for college, for whatever you want to do with your lives. Sophia threw her arms around Maria's waist. I love you, Mom. I love you too, mija. Through the window, Maria could see Miguel in the yard, digging in the dirt, his dinosaur book open beside him. She thought about Rosa Castellano, about kindness and choice, and the way one person's generosity could change the trajectory of an entire family. She thought about Vincent, and hoped he'd found some peace. She thought about how close she'd come to losing everything, her kids, her hope, her will to keep fighting, and she thought about the future stretching ahead of them now, full of possibility. That night, after the kids were in bed, in real beds, with new sheets and warm blankets, Maria sat in her living room and opened her laptop. She started a blog, titled it, From Survival to Life, One Mother's Journey. And she wrote, 6 months ago, I was a cleaning woman barely keeping my head above water. I was one missed paycheck from homelessness, one emergency from complete disaster. I was invisible to most of the world, just another poor single mother who didn't matter. Then a lonely old woman saw me, really saw me, not as the help, not as a sob story, but as a person worthy of love and kindness and a second chance. This is my story, but it's also the story of everyone who's ever felt invisible, who's ever been told they don't deserve better, who's ever fought just to survive another day. I'm writing this because Rosa Castellano taught me something. Kindness is never wasted. Compassion changes lives. And sometimes the people who have the least to give offer the most precious gifts of all. To everyone reading this who's struggling, I see you. You matter. Keep fighting. Better days are possible. And to Rosa, wherever you are, thank you. For everything. I promise to make you proud. She hit publish. Within an hour, the post had 100 views. By morning, 1,000. By the end of the week, it had gone viral, shared by people around the world who saw themselves in Maria's story. News outlets called. Morning shows wanted interviews. But Maria said no to most of them. She wasn't interested in being famous. She was interested in living, in being there when Sophia came home from art class, in helping Miguel with his homework, in going to her own classes and studying late at night at a desk she owned in a house she owned, in building the life Rosa Castellano had fought for her to have. 1 year later, Maria stood in the garden of Mrs. Castellano's old house, her house now. She'd decided not to sell it. Instead, she'd kept it as a rental property, but with a twist. She only rented to single mothers in crisis, charged them far below market rate, gave them a safe place to land while they got back on their feet. It's what Rosa would have wanted. The roses were blooming again. Maria had planted new ones too, one for Sophia, one for Miguel, one for herself, and one for Rosa in the center of the garden with a small plaque that read, Rosa Castellano. She saw people, not circumstances. She gave love, not judgment. She changed lives. Maria's phone buzzed. A text from her study group. Then another from Sophia. Mom, I got into the summer art program. Then one from Miguel. Can we have pizza for dinner? Please? Maria smiled and typed back responses to all of them. As she walked back toward her car, her own car, reliable and paid for, she passed a woman sitting on a bus bench. Young, maybe early 20s, with a baby in her arms and exhaustion carved into her face. Maria stopped. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Are you okay?" The woman looked up, startled. Yeah, just tired. Long day." Maria recognized that kind of tired, the bone-deep exhaustion of survival. She pulled a card from her purse. On it was printed, "Second Chances Housing Initiative," with Maria's phone number. "If you ever need help," Maria said, pressing the card into the woman's hand, "call me. No judgment, no strings, just help." The woman stared at the card, then at Maria, tears filling her eyes. "Why would you?" "Because someone did it for me once," Maria said. "Pay it forward when you can." She walked away before the woman could ask more questions. In her car, Maria sat for a moment before starting the engine. She looked at herself in the rearview mirror. The gray hairs were still there, the lines around her eyes. But something else was there too now. Peace. Hope. The face of a woman who'd fought through hell and come out the other side. Maria started the car and headed home. To her children, to her studies, to her life. Behind her, the house stood quiet in the evening light, its roses blooming in defiance of every hardship, every winter, every moment of doubt. Just like the woman who'd tended them. Just like Maria Torres, who'd cleaned houses to feed her kids, and found that one client, one act of kindness, one moment of being truly seen, could change absolutely everything. Thank you for reading Maria's story. If it touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real stories of struggle, survival, and hope. And remember, you never know when a simple act of kindness might change someone's entire life. Maybe today, you can be that person for someone else. Drop a comment telling us about a time someone showed you unexpected kindness, or when you showed it to someone else. Let's spread Rosa's legacy together.